I still remember the day I walked into that startup, feeling like I was on top of the world. My resume was solid, my skills were unmatched, and I had a fire in my belly that I knew would make me a valuable asset to any company. But as I entered the conference room, I couldn't shake off the feeling that everyone was staring at me. Not at my qualifications, not at my experience, but at my body. The room was sleek and modern, with a long wooden table at its center and a stunning city view that seemed to stretch on forever. But as I sat down, I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. The other candidates were all young, skinny, and dressed in the latest fashion trends. I, on the other hand, was a 300-pound man in a suit that was a little too tight. As I waited for my turn to be interviewed, I could feel my anxiety growing. My palms were sweating, my heart was racing, and my mind was filled with worst-case scenarios. But when my name was finally called, I stood up straight, took a deep breath, and walked into the interview room with confidence. The next 30 minutes were a blur. I nailed every question, provided examples of my past experience, and showed them my portfolio. But as I was leaving the room, I caught a glimpse of the interviewer's face. It was a mix of shock, disgust, and amusement. I knew right then and there that I wasn't getting the job. A few days later, I received an email that confirmed my worst fears. The startup had decided to go with another candidate, citing company culture as the reason. But I knew the real reason. It was my weight. I was too fat, too lazy, too sloppy for their image. I felt a wave of emotions wash over me. Anger, sadness, frustration, and humiliation all mixed together to create a toxic cocktail that left me reeling. I had never felt so rejected, so worthless in my entire life. How could they do this to me? Didn't they see my qualifications? Didn't they care about my skills? As I sat in my dark apartment, surrounded by the shadows of my own self-doubt, I realized that this was more than just a rejection. This was a wake-up call. This was a reminder that the world isn't always fair, that sometimes you have to fight for what you want, and that the only way to succeed is to rise above the noise and prove them all wrong. And that's exactly what I was going to do. Little did I know that this rejection would be the spark that would ignite a fire within me, a fire that would drive me to become the billionaire I am today. I still remember the day I was rejected from that startup job like it was yesterday. The feeling of being turned down solely because of my weight was a harsh reality check, but it also ignited a fire within me. As I walked out of that office building, I knew I had two choices: let the rejection define me or use it as fuel to drive my transformation. The latter was the only option I was willing to consider. I started by taking small steps towards a healthier lifestyle. I began by going for short walks around my neighborhood, gradually increasing the distance and intensity over time. I also made a conscious effort to eat better, cutting back on junk food and sugary drinks that had become a staple in my diet. It wasn't easy, but with each passing day, I felt a newfound sense of determination that I had never experienced before. As the weeks went by, the number on the scale started to decrease, and my energy levels began to increase. I felt like I was finally taking control of my life, and it was an incredible feeling. But I knew that losing weight was only half the battle. I needed to acquire the skills and knowledge to boost my career in the tech industry. I spent countless hours reading books and articles, watching tutorials, and attending webinars to learn more about the industry. I was fascinated by the world of tech and its endless possibilities. I devoured information on everything from coding and software development to entrepreneurship and innovation. The more I learned, the more I realized how much I didn't know, and that only fueled my desire to learn more. As I delved deeper into the world of tech, I began to see the industry in a different light. I realized that it wasn't just about coding and algorithms. It was about solving problems, creating solutions, and making a difference in people's lives. I started to see the potential for innovation and disruption, and I knew that I wanted to be a part of it. My weight loss journey and my quest for knowledge had become intertwined, each fueling the other. With every step forward, I felt a sense of purpose and direction that I had never known before. The rejection that had once seemed like a setback had now become a catalyst for my growth. But little did I know, this was just the beginning. As I continued on my journey, I would face new challenges and opportunities that would test my resolve and push me to my limits. The question was, would I be ready to face them head-on? I still remember the day I landed my first job at a tech company like it was yesterday. It was a beautiful spring morning, with the sun shining bright and a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the trees outside the office building. I walked into the modern, sleek lobby, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness as I approached the reception desk. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the hum of computers and the chatter of colleagues. The company's headquarters was located in a trendy part of town, known for its vibrant startup scene and innovative spirit. The building itself was a testament to this, with its open spaces, colorful artwork, and cutting-edge technology. I felt a sense of pride and belonging as I stepped into this world, knowing that I was about to become a part of it. My new role was a perfect fit for my skills and knowledge, and I was eager to prove myself. I spent my days coding, brainstorming, and collaborating with my colleagues, who were all talented and passionate individuals. We worked on exciting projects, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in the tech industry. The company culture was dynamic and supportive, with opportunities for growth and learning around every corner. As I settled into my new job, I began to build a network of connections in the industry. I attended conferences, joined online forums, and participated in hackathons, always looking for ways to expand my knowledge and meet like-minded people. My social calendar was filled with meetings, lunches, and coffee breaks, as I sought to build relationships and stay up to date on the latest trends. My hard work paid off, and I started to gain recognition within the company. My superiors praised my dedication and creativity, and my colleagues sought my advice and input on various projects. I felt a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, knowing that I was making a meaningful contribution to the team. But despite my success, I never forgot the struggles I had faced in the past. I remembered the pain of being denied a job because of my weight, and I made it a point to use my newfound platform to advocate for inclusivity and diversity in the industry. I spoke out about the importance of creating a welcoming and supportive environment for all, regardless of their background, shape, or size. As I looked to the future, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. What did the next chapter hold for me? Would I continue to rise through the ranks, or would I take a chance and strike out on my own? One thing was certain. I was ready for whatever came next, armed with my determination, passion, and unwavering commitment to my goals. I still remember the thrill of creating my own startup. A sense of liberation washed over me as I realized I was finally the captain of my own ship. The years of rejection, of being overlooked and underestimated, had fueled a fire within me that burned brighter with each passing day. I was determined to prove to the world that I was more than just my weight, that I was a visionary, a problem solver, and a leader. My startup, which I had dubbed Novatech, was born out of a desire to tackle some of the most pressing problems in the tech industry. I had always been fascinated by the potential of technology to transform lives, and I saw an opportunity to create solutions that would make a real difference. I threw myself into the work, pouring all my energy into developing innovative products and services that would set us apart from the competition. As Novatech began to take shape, I knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed a team of talented individuals who shared my vision and were passionate about bringing it to life. I set out to assemble a diverse group of experts, each with their own unique skills and experiences. There was Emma, a brilliant engineer with a knack for designing intuitive interfaces; Jamie, a marketing whiz with a talent for crafting compelling narratives; and Maria, a data scientist with a genius-level IQ and a love for solving complex problems. Together, we worked tirelessly to drive Novatech forward. We brainstormed ideas, debated strategies, and pushed each other to be our best selves. The office was a hive of activity, with laughter, music, and the occasional heated discussion filling the air. It was exhilarating to see my vision take shape, to watch my team grow and thrive. As the months passed, Novatech began to gain traction. We landed our first clients, received glowing reviews, and started to make a name for ourselves in the industry. I was proud of what we had achieved, but I knew that this was just the beginning. The tech industry was notoriously competitive, and I was aware that new challenges lay ahead. I steeled myself for the battles to come, knowing that I had the talent, the drive, and the determination to overcome any obstacle. But little did I know, the biggest challenge of all was just around the corner, waiting to test my resolve and push me to the limits of my endurance. The question was, would I be ready? As I sat in my opulent office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. My startup, once a humble idea born out of frustration and determination, had achieved incredible success. We had disrupted the industry, created new markets, and earned a vast fortune in the process. I remembered the early days when every investor and venture capitalist had turned me down, citing my weight as a reason for their lack of confidence. But I had proved them all wrong. My unique perspective, combined with my team's hard work and dedication, had allowed us to create something truly revolutionary. As my company's valuation soared, so did my net worth. I became a billionaire before the age of 35, a feat that few people had achieved. And with that came a new level of respect and admiration from the tech industry. I was no longer just the fat guy who had been denied a job. I was a sought-after entrepreneur, investor, and influencer. People would often ask me for advice, seeking to learn from my experiences and gain insight into the secrets of my success. I was happy to share my knowledge, knowing that it could make a difference in someone's life. And as I spoke at conferences and events, I could see the impact that my words had on the audience. They would leave feeling inspired, motivated, and empowered to pursue their own dreams. But with great success comes great responsibility, and I knew that I had a duty to use my wealth and influence to make a positive impact on the world. I began to invest in other startups, providing funding and guidance to entrepreneurs who were struggling to get their ideas off the ground. I also started a foundation, focused on promoting diversity and inclusion in the tech industry. As I looked out at the city, I felt a sense of pride and satisfaction. I had achieved my goals and I had done it on my own terms, but I knew that this was just the beginning. There was still so much work to be done, and I was eager to see what the future held. And so I asked myself, what's next? What will I do now that I've become a billionaire and a respected figure in the tech industry? Will I continue to invest in startups, or will I pursue new ventures? The possibilities were endless, and I couldn't wait to explore them. I still remember the day I decided to use my wealth to create a positive impact on the world. It was a defining moment for me, one that would change the course of my life forever. As I sat in my office, surrounded by the trappings of success, I realized that there was more to life than just accumulating wealth. I wanted to leave a lasting legacy, one that would outlive me and make a real difference in the world. I began by investing in social causes that were close to my heart. I had experienced firsthand the pain of obesity-related discrimination, and I knew that I wanted to do something to help others who were going through the same thing. I started by donating to organizations that supported obesity research and education, and soon I found myself becoming more and more involved in the cause. As my philanthropic efforts grew, I decided to create a foundation that would focus specifically on addressing issues related to obesity-related discrimination. It was a bold move, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. I poured my heart and soul into the foundation, working tirelessly to ensure that it would be a success. The response was overwhelming. People from all over the world reached out to me, sharing their stories and thanking me for my efforts. It was humbling and inspiring, and it only fueled my desire to do more. I began to work with schools, hospitals, and community organizations, using my wealth to create programs and initiatives that would promote education, understanding, and acceptance. As the months passed, I watched as my foundation grew into a global movement. People were coming together, sharing their stories and supporting one another. It was a beautiful thing to see, and I knew that I had made the right decision. But as I looked out at the crowd of people who had gathered to support my foundation, I couldn't help but wonder, what would be the lasting impact of my philanthropic efforts? Would I be able to create real change, or would my efforts be just a drop in the ocean? I didn't have the answer, but I knew that I was willing to do whatever it took to make a difference. The question was, what would the future hold? I still remember the day I decided to take my philanthropy to the next level by acquiring struggling tech companies. It was a bold move, but I was determined to use my expertise and resources to breathe new life into these businesses. My team and I spent countless hours researching and identifying companies that had great potential, but were on the verge of collapse. The first company I acquired was a small startup that had developed an innovative app for mental health support. Despite its brilliant concept, the company was struggling to stay afloat due to poor management and lack of funding. I saw an opportunity to not only save the company, but also expand its reach and impact. As I delved deeper into the company's operations, I realized that the biggest challenge was not the technology itself, but the team's morale and motivation. The employees were talented and passionate, but they had lost faith in the company's leadership and direction. I knew I had to act quickly to restore their confidence and sense of purpose. I started by sitting down with each team member, listening to their concerns and ideas, and sharing my vision for the company's future. I also brought in a new management team with a proven track record of success in the industry. Together, we restructured the company's operations, streamlined its finances, and developed a new marketing strategy. The results were nothing short of astonishing. Within 6 months, the company's user base had tripled, and its revenue had increased by 500%. The team's morale had also soared, and they were now working with renewed passion and enthusiasm. This success story was just the beginning. Over the next few years, I went on to acquire several more struggling tech companies, each with its unique challenges and opportunities. But with my expertise and resources, I was able to turn them around and help them achieve their full potential. As I looked back on my journey, I realized that my experiences as an overweight individual had given me a unique perspective on the world. I had learned to identify opportunities where others saw obstacles, and I had developed a resilience and determination that served me well in the cutthroat world of business. But as I celebrated my successes, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held. What would I accomplish through these acquisitions? Would I be able to make a lasting impact on the tech industry and society as a whole? The answers would have to wait, but for now, I was excited to take on the next challenge. I still remember the countless nights I spent poring over financial reports, searching for any glimmer of hope in the struggling companies I had invested in. It was a daunting task, but I was determined to turn them around, no matter what it took. The days were grueling, with endless meetings and negotiations, trying to convince stakeholders to trust my vision. Many times I felt like giving up, like the weight of the world was crushing me. But I refused to let that happen. I knew I had to keep pushing, no matter how difficult it seemed. The lessons I learned during my own journey of self-discovery and growth became invaluable tools in those trying times. I recalled the rejection I faced, the hurtful words, the doubts that crept into my mind. I remembered how I had to dig deep within myself, to find the strength to carry on, even when the world seemed to be against me. As I navigated the treacherous waters of business, I realized that those experiences had taught me something much more valuable than any business degree or entrepreneurial skill. They had taught me the art of perseverance, of overcoming adversity, and it was that art that allowed me to succeed where others failed. I'd often sit in my office, staring out the window, thinking about how far I'd come. The man who was once rejected for his weight had now become the one buying and turning around struggling companies. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I knew that it wasn't just about me. It was about the people who believed in me, who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. The struggle to overcome adversity had given me a unique perspective, a perspective that allowed me to approach problems from a different angle. I was no longer just a business person. I was a problem solver, a storyteller, a symbol of hope for those who had been written off by society. And that feeling of purpose was something I cherished more than any amount of wealth or success. The doubts still creep in sometimes, of course, but I've learned to quiet them, to tap into that inner strength that has carried me through so much. I've come to understand that the voice of doubt is not the same as the voice of reality. The latter may be harsh, but it's the former that can be defeated with persistence and determination. The companies I've rescued, the people I've helped, they've all become testaments to that truth. They remind me every day of what it means to be someone who has faced adversity and come out on top. And with that knowledge comes a sense of responsibility, to keep pushing boundaries, to keep defying expectations, and to keep inspiring others to do the same. I still remember the day I walked into that startup, full of hope and enthusiasm, only to be dismissed because of my weight. It's ironic how life comes full circle. Years later, I found myself standing in front of the same startup, but this time, I wasn't there to beg for a job. I was there to buy the company. As I walked through the familiar doors, a mix of emotions swirled inside me. I could feel the weight of my past bearing down, but I refused to let it consume me. I had come too far, achieved too much. I took a deep breath and began my meeting with the current CEO, who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. The company was struggling, and I knew I had the means to turn it around. The negotiations were swift and merciless. I had done my research, and I knew exactly what I was willing to pay. The CEO, desperate to salvage what was left of his company, agreed to my terms. And just like that, I became the CEO of the very startup that had once rejected me. It was a surreal moment. I couldn't help but think of my younger self, the one who had been so brutally dismissed because of his weight. But I didn't let those thoughts consume me. Instead, I focused on the task at hand, transforming this struggling company into a thriving business. The first few weeks were chaotic. I had to make tough decisions, lay off underperforming employees, and inject new life into the company. But slowly, things started to turn around. The team began to respond to my leadership, and the company started to flourish. I made a conscious effort to create a work environment that was inclusive and supportive, where no one would ever have to face the kind of rejection I had faced. And as the company grew, I found myself growing along with it. I had finally found closure, a chance for redemption. I realized that forgive and forget wasn't just a cliché, it was a way of life. I had forgiven the startup for rejecting me, and I had forgotten the pain of that rejection. Instead, I had transformed it into an empowering experience, one that had driven me to succeed. As I looked around my new office, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. I had come a long way, and I knew that this was just the beginning. The future was bright, full of possibilities, and I was eager to see what it held. But for now, I savored this moment, this ticket to redemption. I had finally proven to myself that I was more than just my weight. I was a capable and successful leader, and nothing could ever take that away from me. As I stood on the rooftop of my high-rise office building, gazing out at the city skyline, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. The once struggling tech companies I had acquired were now thriving under my guidance, and my name had become synonymous with innovation and success. But as I looked out at the sea of skyscrapers, I knew that my legacy was no longer just about me. It was about the people I had helped, the lives I had changed. I thought back to the early days, when I was just a young entrepreneur trying to make a name for myself in the cutthroat world of tech. I remembered the rejection, the disappointment, and the pain of being denied a job simply because of my weight. But I also remembered the fire that had burned within me, the determination to prove myself, and the resilience that had carried me through even the darkest of times. As I walked back into my office, I was greeted by a team of talented individuals who had been given a chance to shine under my leadership. They were the ones who had helped me build this empire, and I was proud to call them my colleagues, my friends. Together, we had created something truly special, a supportive ecosystem that fostered growth, inclusivity, and innovation. But my journey was far from over. I had always known that I wanted to leave a lasting legacy, one that would continue to inspire and motivate others long after I was gone. And so, I had decided to write a book about my journey, to share my story with the world, and to show others that they too could overcome their struggles and achieve their dreams. It wasn't easy, of course. Putting my thoughts and feelings into words was a daunting task, but one that I knew was necessary. And so, I sat down at my desk and I began to write. The words flowed effortlessly, as if they had been waiting to be set free all along. I wrote about my childhood, about my struggles with obesity, and about the rejection and pain that had fueled my determination to succeed. I wrote about the early days of my entrepreneurial journey, about the setbacks and the failures, and about the lessons I had learned along the way. And I wrote about my successes, about the companies I had acquired and turned around, and about the people I had helped and inspired. As I finished writing the final chapter, I felt a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. I had created something truly special, something that would inspire and motivate others to chase their dreams, no matter how impossible they may seem. And I knew that my legacy was cemented, that I would be remembered not just as a successful entrepreneur, but as a person who had made a positive impact on the world. The book was published to great acclaim, and I was overwhelmed by the response. People from all over the world reached out to me, thanking me for sharing my story and telling me how it had inspired them to chase their own dreams. And I knew that my legacy would live on, that I had created something truly lasting, something that would continue to inspire and motivate others long after I was gone. As I looked out at the city skyline once again, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that my journey was far from over. I had built a legacy, one that would continue to grow and evolve, and one that would inspire others to do the same. And I knew that I would always be remembered as the billionaire who had built a legacy, not just a fortune.